What's up guys, DuArktik here with another Marvel Strike Force video, and yes, we are finally back, and we are coming back with a banger. We're gonna take a look at which teams will survive the Great Reset. If you guys don't know what is the Great Reset, it's something that is going to start with Ares, and it's a reset of the baseline of the stats. So right now, a team maxed out as like 4 to 5 million HP, but all the new teams now will have up to 10 million HP, so it's pretty much double of the stats. And this is how Scopely is fixing the situation where they are in, where all the teams that we have right now, they are so good based on their stats, based on their speed bar, based on their mechanics, that the only way to nerf these teams is just to release new teams with double of the stats. This will make sure that we'll have to invest on 10 new Alliance War teams, 5 new Ray teams, 6 new or 12 new Cosmic Crucible teams, and we had this in the past with Silver Surfer. Now we're gonna have it with Ares, and it's just the easiest way for Scopely to fix this. Of course, it's definitely annoying because most of the characters we invested on the past year or so, some of them will no longer have value, even if they have diamonds or other kinds of investment that you might have done. So once again, we're going to take a look at the teams that will survive the Great Reset, at least for a little bit longer, maybe 6 months to a year. But we're also going to take a look at the teams that are already dead based on these stat changes. We have 4 different sections. We have the teams that are already dead, the teams that will have low value, maybe they will last 6 more months or so, but then they are done. Then we have the mid teams that will last between 6 months to 9 months or 12 months. And then we have the teams that have high value that will probably last maybe a year. We'll see. One thing that I forgot to mention is that I'm not going to mention any team that is a 3-piece team like Undying, Tangle Web, and so on, because they always require boosters. And we are not talking about teams with boosters like Apocalypse, Super Skrull, and so on. So keep that in mind. We are not going to reference any of those teams, the trios, because you should invest on them anyway, because they do not rely on their stats, rather the mechanics, and then they rely on the boosters. So keep that in mind. We're not going to mention any trio in this video. Okay, so as always, if you like information on these videos, make sure you share it with your friends on Facebook and Discord. If you're new to my channel, make sure you subscribe for more Marvel Strike Force content, and make sure you smash that like button like a boss. Okay, so if you're an absolute boss, make sure you also comment in the comment section, of course, if you agree with my list or not. Okay, make sure you also tune in today for the live stream where we'll be testing out Ares, if we can unlock him. We should also unlock Mephisto today, maybe tomorrow, we'll see. Okay, so let's take a look at these characters. I have all the teams in order since the past like 3 years or so. And we are not going to take a look at teams like Asgardians or Marauders or Dark Hunters. Those teams are definitely dead. We're going to take a look at teams that were somewhat meta, but once again, they're going to die with the stats reset because the health of the enemies is just so much that the damage you do is just insignificant. So we're going to start off with a team that is very controversial, which is the Wakanda. Wakanda, I'm not sure what's going on with Scopely. They can never make Wakanda good. And Wakanda is going to be one of the teams that will suffer the most with the stats reset, because their damage was always mid. In Alliance Wars, it was okay, I guess, if you had them fully maxed out and if you're punching down. But anywhere else, they were not that good. And they're going to suffer the most with the stats reset because they don't have a lot of piercing damage. And they also rely on killing the enemies. And you're not going to be able to do that. So guess what? It's over for Wakanda. They are the first team that I would definitely, as much as possible, avoid to invest in, because their time on Alliance Wars and Cosmic Crucible is pretty much done with these new stats for characters that are coming in the near future. Let's take a look at the other team, and this team might be a surprise for someone, but we have the Masters of Evil. The Masters of Evil, they still have some decent mechanics for Cosmic Crucible, but they were always dead in terms of Alliance Wars, and it's getting worse and worse because even that they have some piercing damage, their stats just don't keep up with the other characters, and their buffs in terms of health, armor, and so on do not work outside of Cosmic Crucible. Even in Cosmic Crucible, they are struggling quite a lot because they just cannot do enough damage against characters like Extreme XMen if they are maxed out. They just have so much health and barrier that you cannot pierce through them. So yeah, this is a team that we might use some pieces of this team in the future, like Titanian Kang or like Ultron together with other characters. Maybe we'll see that in the future. For example, Ultron with the Illuminati. It's something that you guys will see that it's quite interesting. But yes, unfortunately, the Masters of Evil, they are pretty much done. You can still squeeze some juice out of them in terms of Cosmic Crucible, but not for much longer, as these new teams come and they start are just gigantic compared to these older teams. Now, taking a look at the other team that is absolutely dead, let's see if we can find it. It's the New Warriors. The New Warriors, they were pretty decent. They have some piercing damage. They have Deathpool that one-shots one character on the second turn. But the team as a whole just cannot do enough damage. I used my New Warriors that are pretty big, almost at 3 million power, against the Spider Society. And Spider Society just takes the damage in the face and they have no problem with it. We barely pierce to their barrier with this maxed out team. So yeah, the New Warriors are absolutely done, and it's gonna be another team that is pretty much dead as soon as these new teams start to drop, and even before the reset. Once again, Spider Society, characters that are not farmable yet but will be farmable soon, will be an absolute menace against the New Warriors. So the New Warriors, unfortunately, pretty much done. Maybe we'll still use a few pieces of this team like Firestar and Deathpool together with other teams, but for now Cloak Dagger and the other ones are pretty much done. Let's move on to the two last teams that we're going to talk about for the teams that are absolutely dead with this new meta, and it's going to be the Black Order. So the Black Order, they got reworked recently. Scopely wanted to make them better, but then the envoy said, oh, maybe it's not a good idea to make them so good. And yeah, so they got a rework, and now they're absolute trash. RIP VNM that invested on this team, but yes, they just don't do enough damage. They don't have a lot of mechanics that allow them to do damage and control the enemies. And when you have low damage and low control, you have no chance of having an opportunity. So Black Order pretty much done. And the last team that is also done is the Infestation. The Infestation was always a garbage team when they were released. On the patch 7.2, Scopely said that there will be more Infestation characters in the future. We are still waiting. We have not seen any new Infestation characters since that time. And they were always garbage, let's be honest. Apart from Spider-Man Big Time, the other ones were always garbage. Even if you have them Gear Tier 18, Gear Tier 19, they just don't do enough to be relevant. And that's why this team is pretty much done. You might be able still to use Spider-Man Big Time in some places on this new meta, because he has a lot of focus, but beyond that, not really. So those are the 5 teams that are pretty much done with this new meta. Once again, Wakanda, Masters of Evil, New Warriors, Black Order, and Infestation. Now we're going to take a look at teams that might still hold up a little bit on the upcoming meta, but probably just within the next 4 months, 6 months or so, not much longer than that. The first team that we're going to take a look at is Pegasus, because Pegasus, they do fine, but they don't have that much control. They do some nice damage, but they are kind of slow. So if you have characters that are being released now that are just slightly faster than them, then the Pegasus team is going to be absolutely obliterated. They have 2 characters at 120 speed plus, and that's it. So any team that comes out with average speed higher than Pegasus is going to pretty much obliterate them. They have a stun, they have a revive, but that overall is just not enough with the characters that we have seen coming out now. Whether it is the Annihilators or Ares, they are just going to obliterate this team pretty much early on. And the stats of Pegasus, so my Iron Man is 3 diamonds and he has like 3 million health, while these teams will have 6 million health based. So, I mean, it's just ridiculous, the difference in stats. So there is no way that Pegasus is going to last much longer. So give it 6 months and I'm not sure if it's going to be even that longer, because we can expect a new tech team pretty early. The second team that will still have some value, but it's pretty much on the ropes, is going to be the new Avengers. They do a ton of damage early on. If they can stop the enemies from getting speed bar on spawn, they're also somewhat fast enough to do something, but they're also limited to Alliance Wars. So in Cosmic Crucible, they don't have a lot of value. Dark Dimension, they don't have a lot of value. Raids, 0 value. So this is a team that will also die very fast. The stats of this team overall is around 2 million health, which is very low. Once again, all of these new characters will have 5 million, 6 million, 7 million health without the diamonds. So this team with diamonds, 2 million health, that's just way too low. A Falcon Punch from Ultimus will kill this team right away with his special. So yeah, this team is pretty much done. It might have some value in Alliance Wars for the next few months or so, 6 months like I said, but beyond that they will just fall off, because the newer teams, even if they are not made for the specific game mode, they will just have so higher stats, and not just in health but also barrier and armor, that they will just not be able to do enough damage. They have some control, but it's just not enough to really overcome what enemies do. Okay, other team that will have the same problem, and this is going to be controversial, is Hivemind. So I'm going to give 6 months to Hivemind, and we'll see. So we have Gore coming. Gore is symbiote. There is also some data mines that maybe Null is coming soon as well, but I really hope so. I really hope that's the case, because otherwise this team is done. So Hivemind, it's like the symbiotes. The same problem happened with symbiotes when they were a raid team, because when they rely on Carnage to get a speed bar, to make them fast enough. The damage is pretty mid at this point in time, and if you have enemies with a lot of armor, the damage is going to be even lower. So it's going to be harder and harder for you to trigger the passive of Carnage, and because you cannot trigger the passive, then you will not have enough damage. Now, you can use characters that I call boosters, like Super Skull, Apocalypse, and so on. Characters that you can plug and play on this team and make this team better. Maybe Gore will do the same, maybe Null will do the same. But overall, this is a team that, as a whole, without any boosters, the team will be pretty much done with the next 6 months, maybe 9 months, but not much longer than that, because they cannot trigger the passive of Carnage, and if they cannot trigger that, they are pretty much done. Other team that we're going to take a look at that will suffer from the same fate is going to be the Underworld, if I can find them. The Underworld, they rely way too much on Taskmaster, and now we have a lot of characters that stop assist mechanics. And guess what? This team is all about assist mechanics. So even with Green Goblin applying defense down and Taskmaster applying bleeds and so on, they just don't do enough. And because of that, because of all the armor and health that the enemies will have in the future, you just can't get anywhere with this team. So once again, maybe 6 months or so, they will still have some value, but it's definitely a team that you should you should avoid investing as much as possible. For the last team that you should invest the bare minimum, because once again they are done within the next 6 months or so, is going to be the A-Force. Now, once again, A-Force, like Underworld, they have some mechanics that allow them to ship the enemies and control the enemies with trauma, disrupt, and so on, but they just don't have enough damage. Once again, like Hivemind, you can use a booster like Super Scroll, like Apocalypse. Most people are already using them in Alliance Wars, and this is because, yes, the team has control, but the team does not have enough damage, and that's why you have to rely on these boosters in order to keep this team alive, and that's why this team is going to fall off pretty much within the next 6 months, maximum 9 months, but I don't even think that will be that longer. Okay, so that was the second tier of teams. Once again, we had Pegasus, New Avengers, Hivemind, Underworld, and A-Force. Now, we're going to take a look at the teams that are somewhat mid, that I still believe that you can invest on them without being too problematic, because their damage is still high enough, and they have powerful mechanics, a little bit above the teams we just watched, but they also have survival mechanics that will be also good for them. Okay, so we're gonna take a look first at Noir, and this might be a surprise because Noir is kind of garbage, and they are, let's be honest, but the damage output is still pretty high, and they have a lot of control. Now, this is going to require you to get your Noir to level 100, which is a little bit problematic, but with the release of Odin, maybe you're gonna get more cosmic characters. Star-Lord, if you get him to a decent level, it's not bad either. Blind for 2 characters is pretty decent. Nova, a lot of people are taking Nova to Dark Dimension 7. Once again, pretty decent, turn 1 stun, then he has a battlefield effect. With all these things into consideration, if you take them to level 100, even without boosters, they are still doing better than all the teams we mentioned before. So this might be a team that will still last a little bit longer, based on that, maybe 6 months to a year. And there is a high chance that some of these characters will get reworks based on this new cosmic theme that we are going through right now in Marvel Strike Force. Let's go to the next team. The next team is going to be the Secret Defenders. And the Secret Defenders rely on survivability, speed bar mechanics, control, high damage, more speed bar, more health, more healing, clearing negative effects, even reviving. So this team has pretty much everything. And most of the times we don't use the Secret Defenders with Photon, but since A-Force is dying, Photon is definitely going to be part of this team once again. And with the damage increase that Photon does to this team, they are definitely going to be meta for 1 year or so. Once again, 9 months, 1 year, this team is still going to be pretty decent, and you should definitely invest on them. Of course, you should invest on the 3 main characters, not on the 2 secondary characters, because they are just adjacent. But this team does not rely on a booster to make them good. Even that you can still use if you don't like to use Doctor Strange, it's fine. But yeah, this is definitely a team that you should still consider to invest for the future. Let's move on to the next team, and this one might be controversial, but I will explain why I have this into consideration. And the team is going to be the Alpha Flight. Now, Alpha Flight, let's be honest, this team is absolute garbage as a whole. As a whole, this team is garbage. Their time on the spotlight rates is ending. If you guys don't remember, Scopely said that this team will last around 6 months, and that's it in terms of spotlight rates. Then they will be replaced by another team. But the good thing about this team is that the components are better than the whole, right? So we can use Guardian or Northstar or Sasquatch on different teams and still have value. Then we have 2 characters that are also X-Men, Sunfire and Wolverine, and that means that whenever Professor X comes, whether he is X-Men or Illuminati, he might boost mutants as a whole, and these characters are mutants. So Alpha Flight, once again, not like the team is good, but the different components that you have on this team can be used in other places and make them still relevant. So I think the investing on this team is not going to be a huge deal, even if they lose most of their value based on the spotlight rates. Moving on to the next team, we have the Out of Time. And this team is not out of time yet, they are still fine. At least some of the characters. So Black Knight, still absolutely meta. Cosmic Ghost Rider, still definitely worth the investment. And then the other 3 depends on the situation. Is this still a defensive team? I'm not sure. I'm not sure if they are going to last a lot more longer on defense, in Alliance Wars, Cosmic Crucible or whatever, but at least on offense, they can do quite fine, because once again, of what Black Knight does, but also of Cosmic Ghost Rider and Star Brand. If you keep them on defense, one exposed or exhaust or whatever, they're going to be pretty much done. So that's something that we'll have to adjust. I still believe that they will have value, it's just on offense, and once again, the components rather than the whole, because as a whole, they don't do much in other game modes. And even in Alliance Wars, I think we are better off using them on offense rather than using them on defense. Even that Black Knight is a kind of defensive character, but it is what it is. Anyway, it's still a team that I believe you should invest in. And Star Brand and Cosmic Ghost Rider, I gave diamonds to them to increase their survivability. And if they stay alive, they'll kick ass. So keep that in mind. Moving on to the last team of the mid teams that will last between 6, 9, 12 months. We have a team that is going to be Gamma. So Gamma is probably one of the few Horseman teams that is lasting. This is mostly because of Alliance Wars, but overall, I mean, once again, we have a team that based on the parts, not on the whole, you can squeeze some value out of them. We have villains, we have heroes, so we can create different combinations. We also have Red Hulk pairing up with Apocalypse, and Apocalypse giving more charges to Red Hulk. So there is still a high possibility of squeezing value of this team in the future, and it's going to be like the Noir team. The bigger you make them, the better, the higher the chance you have of benefiting of the passive of Hulk, Red Hulk, and Brawn. And then we have multiple turning winds and stuns that you can use to increase the value of the team. So this is going to be the last team of the mid section. And once again, they should last between 6, 9, 12 months maybe, because of the different mechanics that they have. Okay, so once again, to recap the mid section, we have Noir, Secret Defenders, Alpha Flight, Out of Time, and Gamma. Once again, more based on the parts rather than the whole, and depending if you are using them on defense or on offense. And now the teams that, in my opinion, will still have value for the next year or so. And the first team that we're going to talk about is Sinister Six, right? Sinister Six is probably the best team of 2023, 2024. Once again, we have the whole, but we also have the parts, and because we have so many different parts, and because they synergize so well on different situations, is definitely a team that you should invest in. Do the characters have speed up? Okay, I'm going to use this character. Do the characters have Spider-Verse tag? Okay, then I'm going to use these characters. And do the characters have safeguard? Okay, then we're going to use these characters. So this is definitely a very, very powerful team. It's not a 5-man team, it's a 10-man team, or at least 9 of them you should have for sure. And I still believe that it's going to last for a very long time, whether it is in Cosmic Crucible and Alliance Wars, also Dark Dimension, because of how much control, value, and damage, everything that this team does. They do everything, let's be honest, and that's why you should still invest on them for the future. Next team we're going to talk about is XMen, and we're going to talk about XMen as a whole. XMen, they still have a lot of stats. Their stats are not as big as these new Reset teams, but they're still pretty decent, and they still have a decent amount of survivability mechanics, revive mechanics, speed bar mechanics, stun, crowd control mechanics. So this is still a team that is going to last. And once again, Professor X, whether he's X-Men or Illuminati, he probably has synergy with mutants. So for sure that he will carry the mutants to the next year. And once again, like Sinister Six, because we have different pieces that we can pair up with these characters, it's going to allow them to last a lot longer. Let's move on to the next team, which is Illuminati. And Illuminati with Captain Butter. So if you guys don't know, I call Captain Britain Captain Butter because he dies so fast. But he's just 5 stars, right? I'm hoping that at 3 diamonds is going to be decent. But the Illuminati team is very disappointing because this team was just released and they are no longer good, right? Because all the new teams have double of the stats. So that's very disappointing. But yeah, I think this is a mistake that Scopely made. They should be a little bit better, and especially Captain Britain. They made him so difficult to unlock, and he's just mid. He's just so mid. His stats are mid, his abilities are mid, even with awakened abilities, he's kind of mid. His speed is mid as hell. So it's very disappointing. Now, once again, we have the parts rather than the whole, with a chance that Professor X will also be Illuminati, not only X-Men, but also Illuminati. There is a chance of that happening. And with that in mind, I'm hoping that this team will have some value. But once again, they are very, very mid. Their stats, they just don't hold up, even on the current meta. And Captain Britain is pretty much Captain Butter. He melts in your hands and dies to your enemies pretty easy, which is disappointing. But once again, I hope that they'll get a little bit more reworks or something like that as soon as Scopely gets more data and they see how bad they are, right? And that hopefully will push them for the future. Now, if they suck on defense, guess what? It's like the Noir team. You're going to use them on, or the out of time team, sorry. You're going to use them on offense rather than defense, and that's how you're going to squeeze some value to use them against teams that are slower or teams that you know you have more control than they have. So you might squeeze a little bit more value out of this team, the Illuminati team, on offense rather than on defense. And this is kind of strange, right? Because once again, we are talking about a team that was just released. And finally, we have two more teams. The first team we're going to talk about is Spider Society. These guys are absolutely amazing. These guys with diamonds are absolutely amazing. Not only they have insane amount of damage, not only they have insane amount of control, not only they have insane amount of survivability, they also have insane stats. They pretty much are one of the best teams that we got recently, and they are worth all of your investment. Once again, we are in the same situation. If they are not having any value on defense, you can use them on offense. They are very, very strong on offense. Some people are not aware how powerful they are on offense, but that's why people are using them on defense, right? Because you just want to squeeze the most out of the stats, and especially now with the war bonuses. But once again, in the future, they might switch from defense to offense because of how brutal they are in terms of crowd control damage and so on that I just mentioned. So this is definitely a team that you should invest in. They're also very powerful for raids. They're also very powerful for Dark Dimension. They are a great investment, and you should definitely still invest on them to level 100 and maybe Crimson Gear. I think they are definitely a top recommendation for Dark Dimension, so you could put some diamonds and Crimson Gear on them. And finally, for the last team that we have, we're going to talk about the Mercs for Money, right? Mercs for Money, this team is great. Right now, this team is struggling a little bit because the Dakan diamonds are not available on the store for some reason. Hopefully, they will fix that soon. But the damage output of this team is pretty much insane. In Alliance Wars, they also have insane survivability with death proofs, safeguard, immunity, all the amazing things that the Infinity Watch had. The only difference is these guys are much, much better than Infinity Watch, right? They have much more control, much more damage, much more speed bar mechanics, and they have tons of revive that do not rely on charges. So that will push them to have value for the future. Once again, if they are not having value on defense, because now people are using Ares, and Ares removes all the revives and things like that, well, guess what? You're going to use them on offense, and instead of having a more slow turtle meta in terms of Alliance Wars, we'll have a much, much faster meta. And that might be a good thing. Maybe people enjoy more Alliance Wars. But that's the final team that we're going to mention. So the teams that you should definitely invest for the future, we have Sinister Six, XMen, Illuminati, Spider Society, and Mercs for Money. So this is the total of the teams that I believe, the 20 teams that I believe that will die or that will last with this new meta reset that is about to start today with the Ares release. Make sure you guys tune in for the live stream today, where we'll be testing out this guy in Cosmic Crucible in Alliance Wars to see what kind of nice things he does, and maybe even in Dark Dimension we'll test him out, depending if I can unlock Mephisto today or not. So I hope you guys enjoyed this list. If you did, make sure you smash that like button. Let me know in the comments below if you agree or disagree with the teams that I mentioned. And as always, if you like the information on these videos, make sure to share it with your friends on Facebook and Discord. If you're new to my channel, make sure to subscribe for more Mouse Strike Force content, and I'll catch you guys later.